Hi everyone. Today I'm in Japan on my journey to read the whole world, books and stories from every country on earth. The lazy bugger that I am, that's the best way to travel the world. Okay, the land of the rising sun, sushi, samurai, sword, manga. Japan has a very rich literary history. Many people consider The Tale of Genji, an 11th century book about a playboy prince, to be the first modern novel, written almost 600 years before Don Quixote, making Shikibu Murasaki not only the first female novelist, but the first novelist ever. Japan is also famous for poetry, haiku being my favorite. I've read so many novels and stories from Japan that I had a really hard time deciding which one to include in this video. So I have narrowed down to 2 novels and 2 short stories that are unique, but also very well known in the country, that every kid in school reads them. Except the last one. I hope you like them. Okay, let's start. My first pick is a novel by Natsume Soseki. He was a pioneer of modern Japanese literature and is famous for his works such as I Am a Cat, Kokoro, and many other books. But my choice is Botchan, written in 1904. Not a very long novel, given it was written more than 100 years ago, if you compare to the Russian novels. Botchan, the main character, is an awkward, somewhat arrogant guy who is hired as a teacher in a remote part of Japan, Shikoku, the smallest of 4 main islands. And from the start, he's a misfit in the Japanese workplace. He fails to conform with the school authority, therefore gets himself in all sorts of troubles with the students, teachers, and administrators. It's a comic-tragic tale that has a somewhat happy ending when he resigns his job. Botchan is unique the way that he handles things. He's direct, often selfish, but also likes justice to prevail. Reading this reminded me of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. Like Holden, he's an outsider. It's a great example of character-driven novel. His unique personality creates the plot. One of my favorite scenes in this is a meeting where all the staff are gathered to say farewell to a retiring teacher. When Porcupine, a math teacher, Botchan's only friend. The funny thing about Botchan is that he gives other staff unique names. So Porcupine stands up to make a speech. Out of nowhere, Botchan starts clapping all alone. He's surprised that nobody else is doing it. For him, Porcupine's act is heroic because he's standing in the middle of this huge crowd and making a speech. But I think Soseki wanted him to represent the old Japan versus the new Japan. What is unique about this book is that you don't see many Japanese novels written about misfit or rebel, someone who openly challenges the authority. Botchan is perhaps like a free-spirit samurai, lost in the world that has been taken over by capitalism and Western culture. Soseki was born when Japan ended its 250 years of isolation and started to industrialize and accept Western technology and science. He grew up watching the country transform from a feudal society into a modern capitalist state. Botchan is the last of his generation who didn't fit into this world. In fact, its publication was only a year before the Japanese defeated the Russians in 1905 to emerge as an imperial power in the East. I love the humor in this book and how Botchan doesn't care about what others think of him. How simple his world is, the way he talks, the way he sees others, the way he names everybody else after animals and the color of their t-shirt and so forth. We often find ourselves conforming to things we don't like and believe. So it's a great novel. Now to my second choice. It's a short story by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. He was 35 when he committed suicide, but he's considered the best short story writer in Japan. His writing is dark, but widely read in Japanese schools. For some reason, I always think of him like Franz Kafka, but in reality, unlike Kafka, he tormented himself. Even in his last words, he called himself a stupid man, a terrible husband, an awful father, while Kafka, on the other hand, criticized the system, the rigidity of modern system or bureaucracy. There's very little or no self-hatred in Kafka's writing, as far as I know. This idea of blame is still somewhat that divides the West from the East. In the West, the system is at fault, while in Japan, Korea, and China, if something doesn't work, you have to adjust yourself to make it work, not change the system. Okay, the story is called In a Bamboo Grove, written in 1921 in the form of court document. 5 different accounts of a murder. 3 witnesses tell conflicting account of the incident, and 3 people, including the victim, confess to the act of committing the murder. Akutagawa is trying to challenge our whole notion of objective truth. And Akira Kurosawa, the famous Japanese director, made a movie called Rashomon, which is the title of another of Akutagawa's story. So this 4-page novel had a massive influence on literary world and cinema. And if you spend time walking among bamboos or crowded place, you lose perspective and truth can slip away. Modern cities make our lives more convenient, but in return we lose a bit of ourselves, our uniqueness, and get lost among other bamboos. I mean people. My third choice is another short story by Yasunari Kawabata. He was the first Japanese Nobel Prize winner in 1964. And also he's my favorite Japanese writer, famous for books like Snow Country, Koto, and so on. His novels are very short, concise, and very deep, often lamenting the disappearance of certain Japanese tradition or aspects of culture. This story is called The Dancing Girl of Izu, published in 1924, only 3 years after Akutagawa's In a Bamboo Grove. What is the story? A student from Tokyo visits Izu Peninsula. While there, he meets a band of traveling entertainers or dancers. He falls in love with the youngest girl because he finds her to be the most innocent and naive of the bunch. He tries to find excuses to be with the band, but also doesn't want them to suspect his feelings. We only find out about her feeling when he departs for Tokyo. She's devastated. The subtle, fragile, and innocent. It's such a well-written short story about teenage love. It's a heart-wrenching story that also so beautiful. While reading this, I was reminded of an Iranian movie called Baran, which I think was released in 2006, with a female love interest doesn't say a word, but you know how heart-wrenching the pain of separation is. This is widely read story in Japanese schools. Even there's an express train to Izu Peninsula is named Dancing Girl to honor this story. A fleeting, quick feeling of love, a perfect symbol. Nobody captures the untold emotion better than Kawabata. Okay, to our fourth and final choice. It's a novel. It's very recently published, 2016, which is like 4 years ago. It's called Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. The author herself worked in a convenience store for 18 years part-time. The success of this book allowed her to quit her job. What is the story? The protagonist is Keiko, a 36-year-old woman who has worked only one job at a convenience store and part-time. As you may know, Japanese convenience stores function a lot more than just stores. People spend hours eating, drinking, and even holding meetings there. They are like kitchen, office, coffee shops, all in one. In this story, Keiko spends most of her life working there. When she's not working, she still thinks about her job. Her life, body, soul are all regulated by her work. People come and go, but she stays on to work there for 18 years. When she meets a weirdo called Shiraha, another employee of the store, the story takes a turn. Soon he is fired from the job because he's lazy, he's strange, and he moves in with Keiko in her apartment. But their relationship isn't sexual at all. Influenced by Shiraha, Keiko leaves her job trying to make a life, have a career or a family, something outside the convenience store. In the meantime, Keiko supports him financially as both are unemployed, and Shiraha has no money. One day, when she is ready to go for an interview, on the way to the interview, she sees a convenience store. Through the window, she notices that it's very disorganized. She walks inside to organize the shelves. When Shiraha confronts her, she says she is made for one purpose, only to work at a convenience store. This is a brilliant novel, very short, and on the surface it doesn't seem like a literary masterpiece. The language is simple, the story is simple, but it touches a nerve deep inside every one of us. How we spend our lives thinking we are free or special, but in reality we're nothing but serve a purpose, in search of a place, belonging. It really doesn't matter where or what job, be it a convenience store worker or a president of some giant company, we all crave to belong somewhere. Wherever we feel at home, wherever we feel appreciated, wherever we feel needed. I hope you enjoyed this video. Join me again next time we will read another country on our journey to read the entire world. Thank you very much.